Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I have a napkin journal tutorial for you. This one is also part of the Break the Blank Page series, What Comes Next. So I broke this page by putting on tags. This is going to create texture. I'll put a link to that video. So I'm using this mixed media stamp set from Stamperia, and this one's called, I believe, Clocks and Gears, but I'll link it below. And I love the line work here. Now, full disclosure, at this point, I don't know what I'm going to do, what my focal point is. I just thought I have these new stamps. I'm going to use these stamps and stencils, and we'll just see what happens. The page is going to tell me what needs to happen. So I'm stamped with black archival ink, and I'm loving the effect that this stamp gives. I go all over, and I can see that this one is going to be one I'm going to use again and again. Now, that was a new stamp to me. Here is a new stencil from the Crafter's Workshop. This one's called Crystal Flowers. It's part of the Slimline stencils. And I'm stenciling with black acrylic paint. I know I'm going to be putting color on here, and that's going to push this back a little bit, and that's what I want. But I want something that's a little darker than the archival ink to really show through the color. I'm working at building interest into my background, and I want that contrast as well. I put some of them off the page. I will be recapping all the steps and processes at the end of the video using my art journal prompt and process cards. So I've decided to use turquoise and neon yellow. I switch out the green, the neon green, and I use yellow. And I'm going to mix them right onto the page with a makeup sponge. I want to get each separate color as well as the blending. Now, just a reminder, I broke this page by gluing down tags, and then I gave it a coat of gesso. That's helping the paint move a little bit easier, move and blend a little bit easier. Now I've got too much paint on here, and I want a little bit more turquoise, but stay with me because I solved that problem. So once I dry it, I add a little bit more of that neon yellow. I want more turquoise. So I decide to rub some gesso just randomly. What this is doing is knocking back some of the stenciling and stamping because the gesso is covering it up. It's adding more texture to the page, and it's giving me a white background where I'll be applying the turquoise paint that's going to stay turquoise. It's not going to change color with that neon paint. And here I'm putting on the turquoise paint. This is breaking it up and making it a little bit more interesting. It's not as perfect or symmetrical. Now I decide that I want to add a little bit more contrast by adding white. And I'm debating between just putting white paint through the stencil, but instead I'm going to add more texture by taking extra thick gesso. This is gesso that I have that has thickened over time, but you can buy thick gesso and pushing it through. And yes, I'm not getting it perfect. I am okay with that. If you want it to be a little bit more precise, maybe going with the route of using white acrylic paint instead of the thick gesso is the way to go. You'll get the similar effect, you just won't get the texture. Making sure that that's dry. Now I want to bring out the tag shape. The reason you collage tags down there is to give you some texture. So I'm bringing that out and I'm using the turquoise paint and I'm shading around the tag shapes. At this point, I still don't have any plan for focal images. But I thought I'm going to bring out the texture of the tags, the shape of the tags, and maybe that'll give me an idea. This shading is also breaking up some of the patterning, some of the stamping and stenciling that I've done, because it's going right through it. Now you could choose to do all of them as I have, or some, or none. But anytime I've added texture there, I really want to bring out at least some of it, if not all of it. I chose not to use black for this because that looked a little too stark, and I wanted to keep this page light and bright. So I'm using green blue from Amsterdam, or blue green, I'm not sure which. But it goes really well with the turquoise that I already have on this page. Then I'm shading around the outside, edging the page, which is often what I do at this stage when I don't know what to do. I absolutely am loving this background. And in a minute, once I'm finished shading, I'm going to set that aside to dry, and I'm going to go through my focal images, my basket of possibilities that I have of stamped images and magazine pictures and my napkins to see what I can come up with. And here's what I came up with. This napkin. And the reason I chose it is because while we're over here, right across from it, we have that red orange. I also like how the white dots on this mushroom mirror the white stenciling that I did. And that's why I've done it all together. This napkin I got from Ninny's Napkins. It's called Fly Agaric, which is the name of that mushroom. Who knew? I've taken off both layers, excess layers of napkin, and I used a little bit of tape to do that. And because I want to glue this down on a dark background, but I want to keep the white part of this mushroom white and the brights bright, I am going to glue it down onto a piece of copy paper. That's going to keep it the colors that it is and allow me to glue it on top of a dark background. If I was going to put this on a lighter background, I would have used the repositionable glue technique and I would have fussy cut. I'll put a link to that video in the iCards. There's an I in the top right hand corner. If you click that, my recommended videos are all there. So I am fussy cutting these mushrooms out at this stage. And it's easy to cut out because the napkin is stabilized by the white copy paper that I've put there. And the way to stabilize it when you don't want the white background is using that repositionable glue technique that I talked about just a minute ago. I noticed that there are two different groupings of mushrooms. And I'm not sure if I want both of them on my page or one of them. So I'm cutting out 2. I also am thinking I like the grass. The color in the grass is working really well with the greens that are in that background. So I've decided to put both together on the left-hand side. I grab my Embrace Possibility sentiment pack, and I pick a sentiment, but I decide it's too big, so I'm only using part of it. I'm using the part that says, I will say yes. Opportunities come our way, invitations come our way, and we need to be open to the challenges, even if it's something that maybe it's not in your comfort zone. Trying new things. So I'm trying where I want this, moving it around. And I really love how these mushrooms look on this background. They just really pop, and that's because they're complementary colors. So I'm using gel medium here to glue these down because it's thicker. There's copy paper and the napkin. And when something's thicker, my go-to is gel medium, matte finish. If it was just the napkin, I would probably have grabbed the fluid matte medium. Now looking at this, I don't like where that yes is landing. So I grab the turquoise paint and paint over the middle part of that circle so it doesn't conflict, and problem solved. You can always tweak the background once you get to the composition part if something's not exactly how you like it. Speaking of not exactly like it, some of these aren't quite as perfect as I'd like, and I want to have them a little bit more, so I'm grabbing white acrylic paint and just going over some of them to fill them in where they're missing. Now that I know more about where this page is going. And I'm liking how that mushroom, white dots on the mushroom are. I'm also adding some white stenciling here that doesn't have the texture from the gesso. I had one little mushroom he left, and I decided, I'm going to layer him on here as well. And that's the joy about napkins. You don't have to use them as they are. You can adjust the composition of them to fit your page, to fit your mood. I'm grabbing my liner brush and some of that lime green paint and Hooker's green paint, and I'm just painting some of the grass where I've cut a solid edge. I'm going over it and just adding my own little touches. I indicated earlier that this napkin comes from Ninny's Napkins. She has a lot of really great mushroom napkins. And if you are a mushroom lover, or if that's a motif that you really like, I see that, all over the place. So it must be an in thing right now. You may want to go and check it out. There's a link in the description box and a coupon code. And if you're worried about shipping, she now has flat rate shipping. Here I'm using my General's charcoal pencil. This one's medium, and I'm outlining a little bit just to add a little bit of detail and to make the focal image stand out a little bit more. The medium one is a little bit harder, and you get a nicer, finer line. And here I switch to this extra soft, and that is perfect for smudging, and I love how dark it is. And adding that black around the edge, the shading, really makes this page pop, I think. I try to put it around some of the tags and then I come back with a baby wipe later and get rid of it. I didn't like the dark. Would you have kept the dark around there, around the tags? There is no right or wrong. There's simply one choice that you make whenever. At another time, I would have done something differently. I grabbed the stamp and I'm just adding some lines here. I like that it kind of mirrors the lines that are on the mushroom. Definitely going to love using that stamp. So there we have the finished page. There are close-ups at the end, but let's go through the steps. So this started with clothing tags that were glued on to break the page with a coat of gesso. I applied a base coat of color. Actually, no, I didn't. I did the stamping and stenciling before I put the base coat of color. I added contrast by stamping or stenciling with black and or white. And I stenciled with white, thick gesso. I shaded around the tags to bring out the shape of the tags to add more interest to my background. To picking the focal point, I picked complementary color to what was in the background. I chose a napkin focal image and I glued it down onto paper to keep the whites white and the brights bright. I picked a sentiment from my Embrace Possibility sentiment pack and I edited it and I outlined with my General's charcoal pencil and I edged my page with another General's charcoal pencil. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, go get creative.